Joseph Smith was the biggest prophet of all times in modern day. He was a true prophet. No disrespect. He was the Tupac or Michael Jordan of prophets. And there's no doubt in my mind the guy was ahead of his time. He was at least 50 years or more before Jehovah's Witnesses. His foundation and understanding of the scriptures had already been laid before Jehovah's Witness, Charles Taze Russell, and Rutherford and those guys started printing the Watchtower and Awake and getting organized. In fact, they took some of the foundational teachings of the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. Joseph Smith was ahead of his time, and people tried to use the fact that there was some racist teaching in the doctrine. Are you serious? There was racist teaching in the American flag, in the military, in taxi cabs, in hospitals. I mean, good grief, you know. But he was being refined by Heavenly Father in Jesus Christ, and he had the guts to do that. He talked about things in the old world. So we thought Rome and Europe was the old world, and this was the new world. Well, no, the Olmec, the Aztec, the Atlantis, and all that old world that was washed under the water was over here, and this is where Jesus eventually comes to, in India and many other places, and he talks about that. And I believe those who had a monopoly on the Christianity brand or union at that time that can decipher or who can give out membership to what denomination, they wasn't buying his brand. He was too honest. He was telling the truth of where black people come from, Native Americans, what Jesus was doing from 12 to essentially 28, 27, 26. He was expounding on truths about God and true translations about who God was talking to when he said, "Come, let us make man," God's body, and things of that nature that the scriptures clearly talk about in Jeremiah and Genesis. The world before the one that we see. I mean, he was expounding on everything. And if you sit there and take a magnifying glass and listen to him, and not the people who are, selling you the new globe and the maps, and those who colonially drew up the new world and, renamed all of the states and all of the countries and all of the borders and seas. They didn't want to tell the old story of the reality, and Joseph Smith did. He truly was ahead of his time. I mean, light years, even ahead of the main churches, if you will. Joseph Smith had a heavy task to set an organization up in the latter day times with living prophets that was still able to not only decipher what was being said yesterday, but get the light a lot brighter. And persons like Brigham Young and others who, over time, had to. I mean, you look at George Washington and all of the earlier presidents, they had to work on getting rid of the racism coming out of the colonial, world that we were living in. And, a lot of the generals in the military, blacks couldn't even get shoes to go and fight in the military, So again, when you're bringing up, oh, well, the Latter-day Saints had racism in it, well, you must not know your country. I mean, Congress did too, all of the churches did, even Jehovah's Witnesses. They used to, be segregated, blacks on one side, whites on the other side. So again, for them to bring these kind of things up, it goes to show you that there was a real lack of studying. But Joseph Smith, he really elaborated on the truth about the scriptures and what happened to the missing scriptures in the slave Bible. Because at that time, it was profitable to only use 66 books and really expound on the parts that would help you keep the slaves in check. And, that would really kind of sort of focus on Israel and God's promise to Israel and things of that nature, but it would not really focus on God's purpose and plan, who God was, how he got here, what he had lined up for the world, where were we prior to our human existence and things like that. There was so many blank spots from Genesis to Revelations that the traditional club members of the Christianity under the Constantine doctrine they did not really want to expound on anything, and you had to almost pay for this type of stuff, and you would get burned at the stake if you did expound on anything. And uh, Joseph Smith went above and beyond to really clarify the truth. And this is how he knew all about the pyramids here in the Americas, and this being the old world where the civilizations were first, as Jeremiah talked about, Valvu Vovu. Um, and as that world was sort of destroyed and wiped out underwater, as they're finding out now, and the new world began mainly in the Middle East, and this is how all of the oil and dinosaurs and all of that stuff, he expounded on that, and he helped us to appreciate. So now when you come to the Americas and you find it in the Grand Canyon, how did that stuff get there? How did the pyramids get there? The water lines and the Olmec heads and all of that. I mean, this guy was light years ahead of everybody else. And again, the big players, sort of like the bankers, if you will, or the Federal Reserve heads, if you will, of Christianity, wanted to write him out and make him seem crazy, and like he didn't know what he was talking about. And this is because the population had been dumbed down, to be honest with you, and they did not know of the old world, and they did not know of the firmament and many other things that Joseph Smith was expounding on. They made the guy seem like he was a cuckoo, a nut job. But he was telling the honest truth about the reality of the Bible and how much of it had been taken out. So his testimony under the Book of Mormons really almost put back a lot of the books that was taken out, like the Book of Enoch, the Apocrypha, and many other real books and scriptures that you can probably still find in Ethiopia, or you can find in India and other parts of the world, that just was stripped out of the Bible because it had no use for slaves, or for the New World, and for the teachers of this day. They had no use for it. But Joseph Smith was incredibly smart. This man, again, you almost want to think that he was extraterrestrial, or he had to actually have divine inspiration of God, for sure. There's no doubt in my mind, when I would just go through the teachings and the doctrine, and the weight that the things that he talked about, you go, oh my God, they talk about this in the Book of the Dead, the Anunnaki. Uh, I mean, the scrolls on the wall of the pyramids is written in this stone, the Olmec. I mean, everything you can think about that the man was talking about, even the 5%ers, the God bodies of today, Minister Farrakhan, a lot of the things that he talked about, the spaceships, and Joseph Smith talked about it first. God having a body and all of these things. Joseph Smith was light years ahead of even the Nation of Islam, even the Moors and the 5%ers. If you go back and listen to what he was saying, the man was brilliant. Yeah, a white man with blue eyes, or whatever his eye color was, the man was extraordinary. Extraordinary. And it's a shame how they painted the man. Just absolutely outstanding. Never seen anything like it.